So Nintendo just dropped a massive Ask the Developer featuring Mario Kart World. So as they usually do, they kind of post 3 articles. I don't know why they don't just post it in one single article, because they always post all 3 articles at the same time, seems like. So 3 articles, part 1, part 2, and part 3. I'm gonna give you guys the highlights of it all here in this video. So if you do appreciate this kind of content, leave a like, subscribe for more, really helps with the channel. We do a variety of Nintendo-based content. Listen, the way I'm gonna be doing this is gonna be kind of like cut sort of commentary style, because I'm gonna be going through it. I'm gonna be just kind of picking out the stuff that you guys actually would probably care about, the highlight stuff, and leaving out all the kind of fat. I'm trimming the fat off, if you will. So let's go ahead and jump straight into this. So for part 1, they were asked, there's 3 developers that were asked, to introduce themselves. And I thought this would be kind of interesting to sort of note. So we have Ishikawa-san, which says he worked on Mario Kart DS, Mario Kart 7 as character designer, was the art director for Mario Kart 8 and ARMS as well. Jikumaru, if I'm pronouncing the name right, I apologize if not, Jikumaru-san, basically went on to say that he's been developing together with everyone here since Mario Kart 8 and ARMS. So it seems like a lot of them have worked on ARMS. And then finally Asahi-san goes on to say that he's been involved with Mario Kart series since Mario Kart 8. Besides that, also composed music for games such as Super Mario Maker 2 and worked on ARMS as the sound director. So ARMS seems to be the common theme, and in Mario Kart 8 seems to be the common theme from these developers. Moving on from that, they said that they were thinking about what to do for the next Mario Kart game, even during development of Mario Kart 8 Deluxe. So there's been going on, at least the planning part, the thinking of it, since then. They began prototyping in March 2017. It was at the end of that year when they officially started to work on it as a project. He says, I felt that in Mario Kart 8 Deluxe we were able to perfect the formula that we'd been following in the series up until that point, where players race on individual courses. That's why this time we wanted the gameplay to involve players driving around a large world, and we began creating a world map like this. And then they kind of have the map laid out on the table, which is pretty cool to say the very least. We got a lot of artwork, so we can see actually some artwork down here as well, with a kind of I guess a concept logo. You can see actually couple different concept logos. There's one up here, Mario Kart World, with the 2 checkered flags, and so they went through a couple of iterations of logos as well, as you can see, which is kind of cool. But with that, they were asked, was it always the plan to call it Mario Kart World rather than Mario Kart 9? And some people were saying Mario Kart Tours Mario Kart 9, but it's actually not. He says, if the idea had just been to add more courses, I think we would have called it Mario Kart 9. So that kind of confirms that Mario Kart 9 has never really actually been made, right? Mario Kart Tour is not 9. 8 is 8. This is World. Tour is Tour. But that wasn't our approach this time. We wanted to take the series to the next level, he says. So we decided to drop the numbering this time and go with a completely new title, Mario Kart World. So we'd already added Mario Kart World to the concept art from the early stages of development, which again, you could see in this artwork here. In terms of like everything being kind of seamlessly connected, they thought, with modern technology, being able to seamlessly transition between courses and realize a single vast world wasn't beyond the realm of possibility. So that's what they kind of settled to do, a new kind of Mario Kart. And that's when our troubles began, he said, because of course that's a pretty ambitious thing to kind of undertake. A couple other tidbits: they've always considered it important for the Mario Kart series to run at 60 FPS, and they also believe the split screen multiplayer to be an essential element. So those are some things they wanted to implement. They were excited, but at the same time, the devs felt like it would be tough. They also know that, of course, players that have played the series up until now, are looking for a Mario Kart game that feels familiar to them. So they wanted to make sure they preserve that, but the game has new features, rather like the wall ride, the rail ride, different things like that. So they've kind of played with that. They had fun just with just the basic controls without using these new techniques. We implemented and adjusted features with the goal of gathering up all the best bits from past Mario Kart games, and that's kind of how they did it. So during development, Yabuki-san kept saying, well, that's how we did it in the last game, almost like it was a catchphrase. They know that one of the reasons they actually increased from 12 to 24 racers is because by creating long routes in a vast world, you could end up with players spread out in various places, which could diminish the sense that they're actually racing against each other. So we figured by increasing the number of racers, you'd be sure to see some competitive action here and there. Maybe that's a bit simplistic, and he laughs, of course. They also note a little bit above that, they liked kind of the rounder edges from the Mario, the Super Mario series, and so they kind of of tried to give that a little bit more with kind of, you know, more rounded designs for the characters, a kind of, you know, sense of playfulness, soft facial expressions, rich movements. They also note, you know, a little bit of inspiration from Super Mario Kart as well, you know, and to kind of, you know, create a lively, bustling atmosphere even in a vast world. And so they're kind of talking about how they wanted to recapture that feeling from Super Mario Kart, which of course is the first entry in the series. So again, some nice little tidbits in this, and this is just part 1, by the way. We still got 2 more parts. So they actually note that they had begun developing this on the Nintendo Switch. He says, when we were developing for the Nintendo Switch system, it was difficult for us to incorporate everything we wanted, so we were always conscious of what we were giving up in return. We discussed things like toning down the visuals, lowering the resolution. We even considered dropping the frame to 30 FPS in some cases. It was a tough situation. Of course, earlier we mentioned that, you know, they were saying, hey, 60 FPS is important for Mario Kart. So obviously I would assume that conversation and thought didn't last very long. But in terms of, you know, when they decided to move to the Nintendo Switch 2 development, Yabuki-san first brought it up around 2020. Back then, we already had an idea of what the next system's expected specs, you know, would be. It wasn't until a bit later that we actually received working development units. And so basically, he goes on to say, when we were developing for Nintendo Switch, we often worried whether we could find the right balance between planning and performance. Of course, the Switch system's performance is sufficient for developing different kinds of games, but if we had included everything we wanted to in the game's vast world, then it would not have run at 60 FPS and would have suffered from constant frame rate drops. I think there were a lot of people on the team who were worried about whether we could really manage it, but once we decided to release this game on Switch 2, we expected our worries to evaporate all at once. I remember being overjoyed when I discovered we could express even more than we'd originally set out to. So the Switch 2 not only was able to make it so they could do what they wanted to, what they were trying to do on the Switch 1, but even go beyond that. So again, the Switch 2 obviously is why we're getting Mario Kart World on there and not on the Switch 1. You know, you could probably understand it's a huge world, and yeah, there's just the Switch 1 is too restricted in terms of the specs. They also know that, you know, of course, you know, the graphics needed to be more detailed, but like Sato-san, I also felt like it was outweighed by the sense of relief. From the beginning, the designers were saying they wanted to make the art richer, so I thought we could achieve that now. For example, team members who were creating the terrain and the scenery were really happy because they could now place more trees, which were key to giving the world a more natural look. And yeah, you know, you don't want the world to feel empty, especially if you're making a massive world, right? So a couple interesting tidbits on music. So they're talking about, you know, when they're creating the courses and stuff and the transitions, you know, different courses have different tempos and beats. So they decided to find a way to end each of the course themes. Even though they're connected by the route, video game music often plays on a loop, and so obviously in this game as well. So if you're driving laps around a course, you know, music keeps playing. But for Knockout Tour, as you get closer to the next course, the music transitions to the outro, so the theme ends nicely. So they kind of made a nice little way, kind of, you know, blend and transition to music, which is obviously a good thing. For other modes like free roam, they prepared lots of music in addition to the course themes, and made it so that the game would automatically select the right track depending on the situation. So you see, there's a lot of detail that goes into this. During development, we called this the jukebox. For this, we created lots of arrangements of music composed for past Super Mario and Mario Kart games. And if you didn't know, there's actually a sort of remix of some even like Super Mario Galaxy you know, themes and music as well, which is really nice. Going on to that, they said altogether over 200 for the jukebox. So 200 pieces, musical pieces that they ended up with. These are all brand new arrangements, and we also did live recordings. We prepared pieces from quite a wide variety of musical genres. I believe those who are well-versed in video game music, as well as those who aren't, will enjoy listening to them. And yeah, I'm really excited about that personally, because that's a lot of music, and I love music. I mean, who doesn't, right? They do mention something about weather, which is cool. So you can see some concept art on the different weather changes. So whenever designers get the chance to create, you know, such a vast world, they tend to become bold and adventurous, right? Fully aware that it means a much higher volume of content than they need to work on. So what if we could make the scenery in this interconnected world change with the time of day? What if we could create a world that looks as if people actually live there? We thought this would be nice to make the game full of emotion. So it led to the creation of sketches like these, which they kind of showcase here. We spent a long time discussing with the team whether we could really implement time and weather changes. The sheer volume of work required to prepare all the art needed to show time and weather changes in a seamless world. We were under no illusion, but Sorry, not but. We were even on the verge of giving up on this at one point, but the appeal of having time and weather changes won out, so we decided to try and find a way to implement this feature that we'd initially considered giving up on. So again, pretty massive undertaking to try to make all of these little, all these nuances and elements blend together well, right? So of course, if the time of day and weather are fixed, then it's easier to create the clearest path under those conditions. But even just with changes in brightness or the angle of light, we have to check multiple variations and adjust them accordingly. In that sense, everybody was happy that they could achieve more things, but I'm sure they also ran into a lot of difficulties when it came to actually making it. In terms of how they went about this, they designed it so that a day in the game passes in around about 24 minutes. You easily get a sense of how time passes in the game since it happens faster than in real life, but the time doesn't progress evenly, does it? So he says, another developer says, at first we made the color of the sky gradually change over time, but in many cases we consider the time and scenery together. For example, we wanted players to be able to experience, the desert at night. In that case, when there's a particular scene we really want players to see, we didn't think such a feature would work, as players might drive through that location at the rather bland time between evening and night. So I discussed this issue with the programmers. We decided to focus on the most appealing times of day and dramatically shorten the transitions between day and night. Same thing with weather changes. Sometimes it will rain or snow. There might be a flash of from lightning power up followed by a sudden change in weather. So for these kinds as well, we were thinking about how we can make a lasting impression on players and what kind of effects would be fun for them as they drive around. For the background music too, we took songs from a variety of previous Super Mario games, arranged them into fun driving tunes, which I think will add an extra layer of enjoyment for players. They note that one of the reasons for rail rides and wall rides, where this came from, is because, if you're driving from, point A to point B, if there's a lot of bends, you kind of lose sight of your destination, but if it's just straight, that becomes basically not very fun. It becomes boring, right? And so that's kind of where they implemented rail riding and wall riding. The development team collectively referred to these new features as tricks, and that's kind of why they implemented that, to make it a little bit more fun, so it's not just boring. And again, you're not constantly just having bends and turns when it just doesn't make sense either, I guess. They're also asked how many courses are in the game, and technically they're saying there's basically exceeds 100. Why? Well, because you don't just race on the courses. Their areas between courses are also used for racing. So it's as if their courses are spread out all over the world. So if you were to add up all the possible variations, then it would easily exceed over 100, essentially, is what they're saying. So we also got some more concept art, which is really nice. Just kind of looking at this, lively world, if you will. The bottom left one kind of reminds me a little bit of Super Mario Sunshine, which I like. But yeah, so some really nice concept work, concept art, just kind of looking at how this world would be, how these characters would be living in this world, essentially, is what they go on to say. And then the whole concept of food, right? If you're traveling through a diverse world, you can't leave out the local food that's unique to each place. But actually, we did consider removing the food feature at one point. Incorporating into the games means not only adding the food itself, but also the stores that sell it and the staff that work there, which would mean even more content. So again, they just keep adding more and more content, and their vision keeps getting bigger and bigger and bigger. And you can see some artwork of the various different kinds of food, which is really cool, man. I can't wait to see all the different ones actually in the game. But you can see not just the burger and stuff, but we got burgers and eggs and tacos and whatever, man. You got it. You name it, they got it. So they do note some of the new characters seem like unlikely picks, right? It's like cow. Yabuki-san says, that's right. In previous games in the series, cow was part of the scenery or an obstacle on one of the courses. But when we were working on an early version of a course in this game set on a ranch that players can drive through, this sketch came up. So you can see a sketch, cow kind of in the back of a truck, but cow was actually driving. I thought cow was just on the back of the truck, but she's actually driving it. Ishikawa-san says each new Mario Kart game features new characters to race with, but since we added so many to the previous game, we wondered where could we go from here. And then one of the designers came up with that silly sketch of cow cruising along, and I thought to myself, that's it, this is it. So that's when we realized the course surroundings actually contain a lot of untapped resources. So you can see some sketches of cow here as well. The character designer quickly put together a prototype of cow that could race, and surprisingly, it didn't feel out of place at all. So we thought maybe we could include other obstacle characters and decided to add Cheep Cheep and Pokey as racers as well. As a result, the idea of taking obstacle characters usually found in courses and past games and having them participate in races made sense to me in terms of an interconnected world. We called these types of characters NPC drivers, in other words, non-player character drivers. So it was like they're NPCs, but they're playable. Which is it? It's pretty funny to see a four-legged cow holding on to a motorcycle handlebars with her front hooves. And then Ishikawa again says, but when she jumps, she strikes a proper quadrupedal pose. So I'm pretty sure Cow is still in touch with her animal nature. It was thanks to the introduction of various NPC drivers that the idea to have comic appear as an item was born. When Comic casts a spell, the racers are transformed into playable NPCs, so one by one they might all turn into Cow mid-race. I think it turned out to be a unique item that has never been seen before. In fact, Cow is a character who's inspired a lot of different ideas, including obstacle characters like Camel and Giraffe. Cow is actually a pivotal character in the Mario Kart series, Ishikawa says. There's also a little tidbit on vehicles. There's a lot of vehicles in this game too, they said. Since the game is about racing around the world, we've included not only race carts, but also everyday vehicles. So it must have been tough for the designers, as they had not only design the body of the vehicle, but also consider how the tires would transform when drifting and how the vehicle would move when jumping. So again, lots of thought, lots of energy went into creating this game. They say, for example, the standard kart has a higher height in this game, and suspension movement has been added so that when you drive it, the tires move in accordance with the unevenness of the surface of your action. Since players are driving in a vast world, we wanted them to enjoy not only racing on asphalt, like on a racetrack, but also on rough off-road surfaces. This made possible thanks to the programmer's careful attention to the vehicle movements. We also wanted to be fun to choose a vehicle based on the world's different locations and situations. So we tried to make the lineup as varied and distinct as possible. They also kind of note about, water racing. Mario Kart 8, you drove underwater. This one, you drive on top of the water. So they put a lot of effort into the wave graphics too, which again, if you haven't seen, if you get hit with a blue shell in the water, it creates this massive ripple, which you can actually, sends this ripple back towards, whoever's in the back, and whoever's in the back can actually do like a little jump off the ripple. It's pretty cool. So again, ripples spreading when something drops in the water and whatnot. They made it possible to create waves on demand. The game has enemy characters that create waves when they attack. So we were able to incorporate players jumping on those waves into the gameplay. They also know that racing on water is something this game has in common with the Wave Racer 64 game from, of course, the N64 console. A nice little touch that they mentioned that might get lost, with some people reading this, is that, and because it was just kind of tucked away, is that you can actually add stickers to your cart. So they said the game's road signs designs are also available as stickers that you can stick on your vehicle. So be sure to collect your favorites and have fun equipping them for races in free roam mode. So I would assume there's probably going to be stickers beyond just like the road sign designs. I'm not sure if for sure, but yeah. So apparently customization in that sense is going to be available. So again, it's a nice little tidbit that I don't think we really had any idea of previously. They also wanted to mention the replay feature. So once the race is over, you can rewind and fast forward to review your performance. So you can just, see what you did wrong, or whatever, how you could do better. So we'll hope you'll replay your funniest and best moments when playing with friends and take some beautiful snaps in photo mode. And then they finally ended with mentioning that it's been over 10 years since Mario Kart 8 has been originally released. We'd like to thank everyone who's played it or Mario Kart 8 Deluxe. We believe the Mario Kart world marks the dawn of a new generation for the series, so we'll hope you'll give it a try. And that's right, this game will lead the new generation and all this and that. So yeah, Mario Kart World, my friends, is coming out with the Nintendo Switch, of course, June 5th, 2025. What do you think? Are you excited about this game? What do you think about all this, brand new information? What do you make of it? Let me know in the comment section below. Like I said, I'm really excited about the game. I think it's very ambitious, and clearly kind of going through this, you see how much work really actually did go into this game. And I'm really excited to kind of dive into it all. And yeah, we'll have a bunch of content here on the channel, Lord willing, all goes as planned. So keep it locked on the channel. Leave a like, subscribe for more if you enjoyed this one. And until the next one, game on. I'll see you guys soon.